No.
This week in 40K.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to This Week in 40K for February 28th, 2023. I'm Billy Heilman. This is Noah Beddome.
Hi!
Colin had some real life stuff, so we got Noah here to step in. Noah, is this your first time on the network? Have you been on shows?
No. So this is my first time on when you're looking at my face.
Ooh.
But people will know these beautiful hands from moving around nights and getting their butt kicked by Colin.
That's true. You've been in several bit reps. But why don't you just spend a little time and, minute or so, tell people about yourself. You're an interesting person, both personally and in the context of 40K.
I'm going to take that as a compliment.
Absolutely intended as such. Unabashedly, this is the non-Grim Dark show about the Grim Dark. So,
very well. So my name is Noah Beddome. I am a very large nerd, both physically and also in the terms of the hobby. I play a lot of very nerdy games. I own a game store called Aegis Games, along with some other members of my team, Team Aegis, and I love to play 40K. I like to hobby a lot. I do a lot of painting and a lot of building crazy things. And I like to compete in the hobby and the play. And I try to be like moderately passable at this game.
I would argue that you succeed at that quite admirably. For anyone who ever attends an event with Noah, go check out his armies. They're some of the coolest kit-bashed themed armies you will ever see. The Dinosaur Tau are ones that I've seen that are spectacular. So sincerely check those out. So Noah and I will be doing the show today. Should be relatively similar format to the show, other than I will not be speed reading the last three lists. I'll be speed reading all of the lists. So you did something fun in 40K this past weekend.
I did a very fun thing in 40K. I went to the Cherokee Open.
Yes.
It was fantastic. I had such a great time. Me and JT Steiger from Team Aegis went out to Cherokee, got to hang out with some wonderful people, the Hobby Goblins, the FLG crew, and had a great time. It was fantastic.
Very nice. And that's a bit of a trek because you're in the Pacific Northwest and that's in the middle of central Atlantic coast somewhere.
Yeah, and it's also on the Cherokee Reservation, like in the Cherokee Nation.
Oh, it really is.
Yeah, so you have to go from Bellingham, Washington, which is up on the Canadian border, to Seattle, and then take the Seattle airport to another large airport, and then take that to Asheville Regional Airport. And then you have to do some type of like ancient ritual, sacrifice a goat, and somehow get transportation from Asheville to like an hour, I think it's east, to Cherokee, where there is the casino. And then you're there. So it's like, all in all, it's like 12, 13 hours of like cars and planes and all those things to get there.
Well, very fun. And it is become the kickoff to the season, really, in terms of major events. We will be covering it in a good deal of detail because there was some very interesting things that came out of it. But just, we have an actual expert who was there, as opposed to I, who was in New Orleans talking about basketball, which was fun, but not 40K related.
That's super fun.
Yes. Good food, good drink, good friends. But with that, let's get to our top story.
Our top story.
So I would say our top story this week is that while we probably don't have the quantitative data necessary to definitively say a meta is forming, I would say a meta is forming. And largely, every week I go through all of the top lists that are winning, and there's a lot of Dark Angels, and there's a particular flavor of Dark Angels. Hope you like your Terminators. because boy, do we have your Terminators. I don't know. Is that something you've noticed? Do you have a sense? If you were to describe the meta as it's forming in Arc of Omens, what are your thoughts there, Noah?
Oh yeah, for sure. Well, I was just like deeply immersed in the beginning of it,
Yeah.
so I've been thinking about this like for like a week now.
Ooh, share thoughts.
So definitely, Dark Angels are amazing. I think the bikes build is amazing. The Ravenwing is great. 30 Deathwing Terminators and some tricks is something that is incredibly hard for anybody to deal with right now, especially with how cheap they are. And it used to be like I had to take 30 kind of like efficiently configured Terminators,
Right.
where I have to have like some less good Terminators and some better Terminators. No, now you just take 30 Thunderhammer Storm Shield Terminators, 6 Whirlwinds, whatever other wonderful nonsense you would like, and then you just do the thing.
Yeah, so, and you add 1,000 points on top of that.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It's amazing. The other things you're seeing is Orcs got a new reinvigoration.
Yeah, absolutely.
And a couple different Orcs builds. The very aggressive Goss build has life again, as well as Seth Oster was playing Death Skulls and doing very well with them as well. So I think Orcs got a jolt from the meta as well, which is amazing. Armor of Contempt going away is very good for Orcs.
Yeah, for sure. And what are you playing these days?
I'm on Knights right now.
Still,
and went to Cherokee. I went 5-1 with House Raven Knights.
Okay.
I think right now, if you can't pressure, so we're in like a gunline meta. I believe, at least, I'm not.
It's backed up by the data with a few outliers. There's some people who just want to punch you in the face, and boy, do they want to. But yes, I would agree with you.
And I think that's why the Terminator list works, because it can do some shooting that needs to do, but it also is just an incredibly hard anvil that you have to get pressured by all game.
Yeah.
And so I'm playing House Raven so that when I go up against these really powerful gun lines, your Guard, your Votan, Iron Hands, oh my gosh, Iron Hands. I could explode forward and be aggressive, or I can just be Mechanicus Knight, sit back and do a bunch more ones.
Okay. That makes sense. And sorry, what was that last point?
Oh, sorry. I said it's worked out so far.
5-1 is better than anything I've ever done. And so, yes, I envy you. And as you said, he's trying to be mildly average. This is, and take a look at his Knights sometime too. He's more than average at both. I agree with all of those points. The only piece of flavor I want to add to that is, while I do think that there's some top predators filtering around, you can do a lot of things and still be successful in this meta.
Absolutely.
It is yet to solidify into like, there's a build, and if you don't do it, you're screwed. You can bring the fun toys that you want, and there's a pretty big variety of things that are succeeding. And very few macro factions where you're just sorry, don't do anything. Like Guard and GSC were the last holdouts of that, and Guard and GSC are good now. So
good. And I think the macro faction thing is the opposite in terms of like if you just play any version of Space Marines right now, you have and know how to play the game, have a decent chance to do okay.
Yeah. Spoiler, getting 700 free points when 2,000 is the average will shore up a lot of play deficiencies, as I'm enjoying discovering.
And sticky objectives, when you don't have to leave valuable resource sitting on objectives, is amazing.
Yeah. Lots of fun tricks. All right, let's move on to broadly talk about the news in What's New.
What's new?
So relatively short week for news this week. It's been busy leading up, and I assume as we get closer to Adepticon, it will be. Speaking of which, one of the big pieces of news is that Golden Demon is going to be coming to Adepticon. Golden Demon's one of those things that, for gray beards like the two of us, although both of our beards are looking quite dark and splendid. If we lean forward, you can see the gray. Maybe this is me just misunderstanding the way they do their marketing, but I feel like back in the 90s, I would open up my White Dwarf and I would just go through like the 10 pages of Golden Demon in White Dwarf. And that was honestly one of the highlights of my year. I feel like it's been a little bit toned down in terms of the presence it has, but it's still, if you enjoy the hobby at part of this hobby, the skill that people have these days and what they are doing is truly works of art. Have you ever been to a Golden Demon? Do you consider yourself quite at that level?
No, not even remotely
Okay.
close. But I would say like I'm good at figuring out what techniques I can do.
Hmm.
A really good way of doing that technique, and then only using those techniques so my models look really great. I am not at like we have a guy on the team JT who is a classically trained artist and
Yeah.
all those things. Like he's done tattooing, he's done portrait stuff. He's now he competes on the bang level. He's the guy who's doing all the crazy blends and that kind of stuff. But no, but Golden Demon is one of those things that you look at and you just feel that return to your youth, like
Yeah.
awe. And I think the average skill level of painters in general is going up in the hobby and in things because there's so much access to good content, good
Yeah.
tools, but more lines of paint, all these different things that are giving people more access where previously it was much harder to get.
That's for sure. And actually, the main thing that I want to emphasize there, because I am one or two tiers down generously from where you are in terms of my painting,
That's
but
great.
no, it is. And trust me, compare this to 12-year-old me who didn't realize you had to prime your miniatures. You try to paint a pewter miniature without primer. That's a challenge, sir. But the point that I want to make is finding those tricks and those tools, like just realizing how the minimal use of an airbrush will level up your game 3 steps. Like you just go from, wow, these are ugly, to, I can actually sort of paint. So finding those tricks that work for you and just repeating them, I don't think I could give a better piece of hobby advice. So just really want to highlight that. Moving on, for those of you who enjoy the collector coins that GW releases every year, or month, I guess, shows how much I personally care about this aspect of things. There's a new collector's coin. I think they're a big deal if you live like near a GW store and have ready access to that. Thinking back to the points time in my life where that was a thing. Yes, not sure how much they are part of, just your friendly local game store. So those were the big announcements. In terms of rules, the Brutalis Dreadnought, we are getting closer and closer to having full data sheets for it. Have you been looking at that one, the new Primaris Dreadnought with the melee stuff?
I did. Goonhammer actually did a great review.
Okay.
They did obviously not a video unboxing, but they went through all the different parts of that kit as far as reviews, the lore, the narrative stuff, and the actual models, or the rules and the actual like physical models.
Are the points out? Were the points part of that?
Yeah, so there's an insinuation of points.
Okay.
Looks like what we have is, according to Goonhammer,
Yeah.
surmises that if you put the multi-meltas on the Brutalis, which I feel like if I'm running one, it's multi-meltas and claws, but
yeah,
heavy bolters too, that would be fine. With the multi-meltas, it looks like we're even at like a smooth 200 points, which I think is just outside, and I agree with Goonhammer, just outside of like the right level of efficiency, but still playable. Goonhammer did say, though, that they believe that these are pre-nerf points.
Okay.
Based on the kit was created before we were just went through the series. Like, so if we get a post nerf and it goes down, or buff and it goes down 10 points, 15 points, I think we're looking at like some choice dreadnought real estate.
I agree with all of that. I was looking at and just thinking about the equipment on it, and I don't know. It is, but I don't know if you've ever played with a Redemptor. Mine, you know how on the right arm is a macroplasma? Mine, those are all replaced with wet noodles. They don't, for me, they do not shoot to odds ever.
I like if you have a usage for one, I like the heavy can, I forgot the name.
Gatling.
Yeah, the Gatling. I mean, obviously the macro is good, but the macro to me is like a deterrent. Like the macro says, my opponent thinks if they really want to maybe take spike damage to the face, so they might not just pop out with impunity.
Sure.
I think having a melee dreadnought, even though it might not be the right time in the meta form, just this moment, I think is like the right place for that tool, right? 24-inch multi-meltas, big old crazy claws.
Well, that was going to be my point, is that replacing the macroplasma with multi-meltas is actually similar profile and just so much better on top of better melee. So everything I've always wanted to use those dreadnoughts for, this one is better, and so points. And same thing with the new Primaris Devastator guys, whose names I don't forget.
Desolation Squad.
Yeah, if the points just came down a little bit, I would be interested in both. Here's the thing. Where are you on those Primaris Devastators in terms of the miniatures?
Oh yeah, the gun is like in a front. The gun is an atrocity, right? But that being said, there are a lot of things, even like the 30K missile launchers and a variety of other things that you could kit bash and do pretty easily, especially with access to a lot of these 30K plastic kits now, where you can change some stuff up to make a good looking gun. I do think the stats overall, I actually think Desolation Squads might have a place, but they're right on the edge of points. I think they're a little better placed in points than the Dreadnought, but I think they might actually be playable.
Fair. I am in the very small minority that thinks they're actually kind of cool looking, but I accept all shame.
Look,
the fact that this hobby is grim and dark has never been what appeals to me. I actually like the futuristic techno stuff. So yeah, but I recognize that I am in the vast minority. And then our final bit of new rules is that Forge World rules got an update, and apparently World Eaters can take all of the Forge World stuff that you would think they were allowed to.
Cool.
Which, when we get into some lists, World Eaters are showing up. It's the same list, copy and pasted a bunch of times. But if you really want to punch someone in the face very hard, I'm not sure if there's a substitute.
On 8 of 9 missions. There's one mission where you go.
They kind of, well, interestingly, one of them doesn't lean on that pregame move.
Oh, for sure.
That we're talking about. It leans on a very large, very angry boy.
Interesting.
So with that, let's get into what's winning and talk about events.
What's winning?
So this is the part of the show where we just run through a bunch of events, and normally I have 10 minutes to do 4. This time the two of us have about 42 minutes to do about 8. So let's start out with the Cherokee Open. Let's try speaking again. The FLG Cherokee Open in Cherokee, North Carolina, which was 257 players over 6 rounds, and then a top 8 on day 3. Noah, you were there.
It was. It was a great event. Like, first off, the venue's good, right? Nice, big, clean place. It's a full scale casino, and resort, so lots of goodness. A lot of people, fantastic people, came out. Art of War was out there in force. Yeah. Adam Camilleri was on site. The Death of Glory people were there. It was a pretty big, good show up, and it seemed like a pretty diverse field.
Okay, yeah. As we'll see when we get into this, although you can make an argument that boy is Imperial Power Armor good. So first place, and really the finals was between Stephen Crawley's Dark Angels and Brad Chester's Space Wolves.
Yes.
Spoiler, Stephen took it down. His list: Azrael, Ezekiel, Chaplain, a Talon Master, 5 Infiltrators, because you need those, 1 Ancient, 2 Commands, Deathwing Command Squads, 30 Deathwing Terminators, and a Raven-Wing Apothecary. You know how I was saying Terminators? Terminators go boo. Terminators go boo. Were you able to see him play at all? Have you seen this on the table, or have you just heard horror stories?
No. So I missed the top 8 cut because the tiebreaker they were using, some 5-1s made it in. The tiebreaker they were using, though, was your opponent's win percentage.
Yeah.
So I missed top 8 cut, so I got to watch in all its glory. And having also been kind of in the general vicinity of those tables as other games were playing, the thing was the Terminators just kind of exist into the middle of the board.
Right.
And then sometimes they exist inside of your models, and your models don't exist. It was mostly how the things happened, or they exist in the middle of the board and they continue to exist to the end of the game. Right. It was basically what we got.
So not to try to denigrate anyone who's playing this, because certainly I have never and likely never will go 9-0 at a super.
Stephen played his butt off too.
Yeah, though. But is it broadly fair to say this is sort of like a shuffleboard puck army, where you just sort of shuffleboard puck your army forward, and like, is there ever a plane where you're not doing that?
I would say a little bit. I mean, it definitely is like you plan out all your movements, and then you're trying to get your models to the right places.
Sure.
I think some things throw you some, like there's some like problems that you have to think about. Like most armies are way faster than you,
Yeah.
right? There's a potential of getting blocked out on the table, all those kind of things.
Mhm.
So there is, I think, a degree that goes into either you're going in something with enough shooting to actually hurt you,
Yeah.
or something that is fast enough to mess up all your movement. In those cases, I think the game becomes way harder than it normally would be for other lists. So that's where you need that high level skill outplay. And I think that's where Steven made his money.
For sure. I mean, and when you look through who is in this top 8, you're not winning this if your brain is turned off.
We had to go through Lennon's Iron Hands.
Yeah. One thing that I haven't seen, like these two lists showing up next to each other, you're talking about fast and move blocking. Would something like GSC, that just like a shenanigansy GSC list, give it problems, or does is the Dark Angel just too resilient, too killy, and go brutal?
Well, I think the GSC could hem them up for a little while, and they'll have to fight their way through for sure. Thing is I don't think there's anything in the GSC book currently that can kill the Terminators efficiently.
Okay.
With a 2-up save, with a 2-up, 4-up, 3 wounds, and a 6-up feel no pain.
Yeah.
Right? Even Gene Stealers aren't going to do it, right? Yeah. And also being any of the things that can be plus a wound, they're all transhuman Terminators, right? So I think at some point, you could keep them off for a while. I think maybe on a hold 2, hold 3.
Yeah.
Better chance for that. But I think on the 5 objective missions, I think it's just delaying the inevitable, probably.
Fair enough. Well, we'll have many more chances to talk about builds very similar to this one as we go through the rest of the list.
Cool.
But speaking of something that's nearer and dearer to my heart, because it's broadly what I'm exploring right now, is what Brad Chester brought with his Space Wolves successors, because that's just correct. He's doing Born Heroes and Whirlwinds, +1 to hit when he charges, and double exploding 6s, and Assault Doctrine, Chapter Master on bike, Chaplain on bike, 2 units of 5 infiltrators, 2 units of 5 Van Vets. Boy, can Space Wolves do a bunch of weird stuff with their Van Vets, who are actually called Wolf Guard. He has one Meltas on all of them. 1 unit was Thunderhammers and Lightning Claws. 1 unit was Axes and Fists. All of these units can come in at as cheap as 115 points and are wonderful trade-up pieces. Continuing on, similar themes, 2 units of 5 Terminators with Meltas. Some had Chain Fists, some had Thunderhammers. 5 Wolfen. You're actually going to see Wolfen on tables again because they offer some very interesting utility, plus nothing can punch them and live because they kill back. The Skyclaw unit, which from this event and others, this is sort of for Space Wolves players. It seems you're allowed to bring 4 Meltas in a unit, not 3, depending on how the rulings work. 3 suppressors, and then 3 units of Long Fangs. 2 of them with blast cannons, 1 with grav cannons, and all with the Terminator sitting as part of them to give them, a 0-up save and cover. This is an MSU toolbox of craziness, all of which can trade up, all of which allow a player of Brad's caliber to just drop things in all over the board with the Terminators and outflanking and get, 7-inch rerollable charges. And to my mind, Space Wolves are the Space Marine army that said, okay, I get the most points added in. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with everything you said, and I would say also that it's like this is actually almost like a fluffy Space Wolf list. It's like very close, right? And watching Brad play is very much played in the way you're talking about, right? So Brad could put the gas on against things like orcs and some other things. Once it was go time, this list can just punch the living crap out of everybody.
Yeah.
Other than Terminators, which we find out, right? And then other than 30 Deathwing Terminators. Right. And then, or he can be very careful. Like in his guard matchup, he was staring down the table at 3 Dorns, right?
Yep. And we'll get to that.
And so at one point he's, hiding out of line of sight, getting the Dorns into combat, holding them there so the Dorn can't come any further to shoot the rest of his army, and then moving around, just scoring all his points and doing the dance. And I think that's the flexibility of the list is amazing. I think it lacks the power of the Dark Angels list, but I think it's Like if Dark Angels is like a 99 on the power scale of like, I'm going to punch you in the face.
Yeah.
This is still like a 90, 88, but with a bunch of tools.
It's just the Deathwing Terminators specifically turn off a lot of the efficiencies that other armies use. For what it's worth, I think that having run the math, you can make units of 10 Wolfen, and there are sneaky ways you can buff them up. And 10 Wolfen will actually sort of mess up one of those Terminator squads, and they're cheaper.
10 Wolfen mess up everything in the game.
Well, and we have a test case for and everything in the game that's incredibly tough. If this is your concern, if you want to make a Dark Angels player feel bad, I'm just saying, can go from the MSU version, which is better against everyone, to the I hate you in particular. And we know that Space Wolves and Dark Angels, not the best of friends. These are my thoughts.
Very fluffy final match.
It really was. Again, as someone on the Space Wolf side, I'm a little annoyed that we're probably getting what's the Dark Angels Primarch Lionel L. Johnson, that he's showing up before Russ, because basically more about me, because let's make this about me rather than the best players in the world.
You're a beautiful human being.
Well, I thank you very much, and I try to be, but I want to shove Bobby G into a Space Wolf list, because I actually think he does some very interesting stuff to amplify what the Space Wolves are trying to do. Again, specifically, if we're saying that Wolfen are a great answer to where the meta is going, Bobby's buffs work on Wolfen. So Wolfen that actually the reroll charges is from the Wolfen, but they get +1 to charge from Bobby. They get reroll 1s to hit from Bobby. That in and of itself is enough to make me. That's what I'm trying out later tonight. Boy, if Bobby's all the keywords that were Ultramarines just switched to Space Wolves.
Bobby G, the dog walker. That's what we're doing now.
I'm going to try it.
Let's go. I would love to see that list. Let's go. That's awesome.
Well, we saw it. We saw a very skewed version of it last week at the event Colin was at, with the 30 Wolfen, Astreus, and Bobby, and that's what got my wheels turning. But all I'm saying is that this is the Russ versus Lion. It, like, literally, if you just took Bobby's rules, changed Ultramarines to Space Wolves, I think Space Wolves actually are the S tier list. But continuing on, because there's too much to talk about and too little time to do it. Next up, someone you might have heard of, John Lennon. He played Iron Hands. These are lots of guns. He did Artisans and Whirlwind, so one reroll in there, and then the Exploding Sixes, a Lieutenant and a Tech Marine, because you don't need rerolls because they come baked in. 2 units of 5 Infiltrators, the Volcon that just kills anything. I'd actually be curious how that one does into the Terminators, because I imagine its lack of AP becomes a bit of an issue. A unit of Scouts with a bunch of toys, because they get those for free. 10 Lightning Claw, Storm Shield, Van Vets, although there was like 1 Relic Blade and 1 Chainsword in there for points. 2 Tornadoes, 1 Thunderstrike. That's the Primaris land speeder thing that you have never seen until now, but you are starting to see those Primaris vehicles. 2 units of Grav Devastators with 1 Multi-Melt in there. 3 Reaper tanks. So those are the Gatling cannon tanks, which in Iron Hands, I'll give you a second to wax poetic on Reapers. A Pod and a Storm. Noah, the floor is yours. Tell me about the Reaper.
As an Imperial Fist player, like a Crimson Fist player at heart, I like things with a lot of guns and that shoot a bunch, right? Mm-hmm. And the Gladiator Reaper has always been one of those things that you're like, man, it's really good. And you saw it in some European metas. It showed up a little bit, usually 1 of or whatever.
Yeah.
But this thing shoots out 42 shots plus D3. I might be 1 or 2 shots up, but we're at 40 plus shots and D3 more shots every time. So we have 3 of them. So we're sitting at 120 shots off 3 models, and we still have 1,400 points left in our list, or 1,500 points left in our list. And that lets you get the tools like those 10 Vanguard vets who are literally either going out and handling a problem or hanging out and waiting for someone and to say, oh, it's a gun line. I need to assault the gun line. Well, there's 10 Marines who have something to say about that. And then that land speeder, the Primaris one, hits on 2s with a bunch of like las cannon style shots, and it's super fast.
Yeah.
And then you have like blocking elements like the Infiltrators, and this list is super cool. And those Gladiators, though, are like they're just so good with so many shots. Like, oh, well, they're only winning against 5s against these bigger targets. Yeah, but it's 120 shots with all the re-rolls baked in, and one of them's hitting on +1 because of the Tech Marine and all the magic. And then they're iron hands, so they're just like harder to deal with in general. They have access to a bunch of cool strats. I think the list is, if we're talking about gun lines in this meta, this is one of those lists for sure.
Yeah. And I think it would have been nice to get your Primaris tanks a couple months ago, because those things I don't believe are currently available, and find them, because with the points drops, they're some of the best shooting that Marines have. And I am a fan because I think those models are awesome, and I'm glad they're showing up on the table.
120 shots 120 shots in 3 models is like AdMech numbers. You know what I mean? Like, it's like,
well, on a flying tank. So yeah. Basically, if your Art of War folks are playing it, it's worth investigating. But speaking of a list we alluded to earlier, Gabriel Rochelieu, I'm bad with French names. He brought guard. He brought the command squad you see, Pony Boy, Tank Commander and Ursula, 30 Kazarkins, 3 Scout Sentinels, 3 units of mortars, 3 Dorns, and a Chimera. The Dorn is here. The Dorn is real. The Dorn is showing up in winning lists. What you again got to see this? What are your thoughts on Dorns?
Yeah, so I was actually playing right beside this guy. I mean, this guy, we're hanging out a bunch this week, and I was playing right beside him for like 2 or 3 rounds, and I got to see what the Dorns do. Man, those things hit so hard, are incredibly hard for most armies to deal with, and take up a lot of space because they're just so hard to deal with. And also, obviously, the turret weapon special rule. You can screen with them. You can just like push the table and bully with them. That flat 4 damage cannon is amazing. This list was really cool. The guy played it very carefully for sure. And then there were some matchups where he got where like just looking at something he can shoot across the table and it doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah.
And also Gardner just really good in general with like access to all the other like troop-based tools, 12 screen out, all that stuff. This list was super cool. And I think the Dorn is here to stay. A lot of lists were running 1 Dorn this weekend. I think you'll see 1 Dorn most of the time. I think 3 Dorns, I don't know if it's the list, but it's definitely a list for sure.
Yeah. The thing I like about it is that it shows that 1 isn't just the answer. There is possible, like we saw Hank last week with 2. We're seeing this one with 3. If you know what you're doing, and it also shows that Guard aren't just a brain dead math army. Like there is actual real play to them. Sure, their math is dumb, and their math can let you do some dumb stuff, but there is real ways to optimize it and raise ceilings, floors, whatever, raise your ability to play. So well done to Gabriel there. And then the last one we'll talk about, Jeremy Stan brought Custodes. He brought Emperor's Chosen, which we actually don't see quite as much as Solar Watch these days. 2 shield captains, 1 Terminator, 1 on bike. Trajan, because he's in every single army, because he should be. 2 solo Alaris, 5 Wardens, 3 and 3 Venatari, and 3 and 3 bikes. When you don't have a ton of data sheets, a lot of your armies tend to look similar. That said, this one is much more on the fast stuff. I think probably a lot of your decisions with Custodes are going to be terrain dependent. This one seems to think that being fast and hiding is the answer here. And just broadly, Custodes had been I am the durable army. And now we might have a better I'm the durable army in the one that won with Deathwing. So I don't know. What are your thoughts on the place that Custodes have currently?
So Custodes definitely aren't what they were in terms of like, I'm the durable army they can just stand in the middle of the table. But I think they're durable enough that if you don't have like dedicated resource, even for the like Levenatari, which are on the the gentler side of the Custodes survivability profiles. You have to have dedicated resources looking at them, right, to get rid of them. So they can hide on the table, lay in wait, and then jump in and hit something really, really hard at basically full strength. And that's what I've seen the Venatari doing. A lot of people are running the Venatari right now for that reason. Yeah. So I think they're good. And I think they don't play like you want them to play, stand in the middle of the table, say bring all comers. They're more like staging up and then ripping out, doing the decapitating blow, right?
Fair enough. So that was the Cherokee Open. We covered it in. Yeah,
If we
please.
have
No,
time, can I
you can say whatever you want.
honorable mention 2 lists?
Bring it, Noah.
All right. So one honorable mention list is Jack Harpster's list.
Okay.
Harpster went 5-1.
Mm-hmm.
Had a 1-point loss to Deathwing Terminators.
Ooh,
And
okay.
he was playing a pure Tzeentch Demons list that was specifically designed to be predatory on gun lines.
Okay.
And boy, was it predatory on gun lines. The Dark Angels list was the list that really gave him a hard time.
Right.
This list was the list that was designed to take down the Lennon Iron Hands list
Mm-hmm.
and a variety of these other shooting lists. So I think that list is really amazing. I think demons are in a great spot.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other one is
3+ demonic save against all your shooting.
Yeah, absolutely. And the other one was 3 monoliths, 3 obelisks.
I've heard about this.
Into the top 8. I was like, I don't know what that guy was doing, but whatever he was doing, it was amazing.
Yes, and I imagine that'd be a very pretty army to look at too.
It was super cool. Just like a bunch of cubes.
Sometimes there's an advantage of just doing things sideways. Everyone's prepared for X, and you bring apple. It's not like you bring Y. You bring just monoliths, and I had not planned on that. So just like you have a plan for everyone else, no one has a plan for you. That's
for sure.
That's really good. Okay, well those are both fun, and yes, didn't see it as much this week, but I know there was a lot of talk about that Tzeentch list out in the world. So know that it's a thing. Absolutely. Cool. The monolith one maybe not as much, but who's to say? All right, next up we have the Schuenkloppen, I think, Open Warzone Erkelenz in Erkelenz, Germany.
I think you did the best any one of us was going to do.
All right, fair enough. If that's your take on pronouncing interesting and very Germanic words, I will not force you into trying as well. So the Schuenkloppen Open, this one, different meta. There was a lot of Hail of Doom in this top 5. Starting with Matthias Bellman. He had Hail. Normal amount of Warlocks. Also, a lot of Phoenix Lords. He had Flappy, because everyone has Flappy. He had Corandris, 2 more Farseers, 5 Rangers, 3 units of 9 Dire Avengers, 2 units of Banshees and 1 of Scorpions, 3 Shining Spears, 5 Shroud Runners, and 9 Cannon Bikes. When you increase the AP by 1 of this army against most of the field, Hail is just an efficient gun line with tricks. So have you been on the other side of Hail where they just roll 6s and then your army's not there?
Not with Knights. I haven't. I have face down Hail with Tau, and that's a comfortable place to be. And that was at the height of that Hail power. So yes, delete buttons exist for sure.
Yes. And again, that's a very fast army. It cannot take a punch, but its punch is strong.
For sure.
Speaking of armies that can take a punch, you know how I said we'd talk about those Dark Angels lists again? Here's one. Pascal Haberstroh, Ezekiel, Samael, 2 Talon Masters, 1 Ancient, 2 Command Squads, 30 Deathwing Terminators, and just when you thought you couldn't have enough Terminators, 10 more regular ones with Thunderhammer, Storm Shield, 40 Terminators, and their attendant friends walking forward.
40 is a lot of Terminators.
It's not the only time you're going to see 40 in the rest of these lists that we see here today. If you're planning on going to a big event and you want to win, you have to have some sort of a plan for 30 to 40 Terminators. They show up everywhere. Terminators are available enough models, and especially if you're a long-term Dark Angels players, you probably had like 20 of them already, just ready to go. All right, let me get 10 more. We're good. Third place, Valentin Schefter with Guard. Your usual HQs, the Command Squad, Pony Boy, Tank Commander. He brought a Commissar rather than some of the other things you're seeing. He did have 4 Bulgrin because he respects that some people might want to touch him and he wants to say no. 2 units of 10 Kazarkins, 1 Scout Sentinel, 3x3 Mortars, 4 Lehman Russes. Everyone just puts plasma on those things. And then he had a Tempestus detachment with a command and 2 units of 5 scions. It looks like, the core, there's a 1,200 points of guard that largely doesn't change, and then figure out your last 8, depending on how many Dorns you have, obviously. But this is what we're seeing. What's your thoughts on the Bulgrin versus non-Bulgrin?
I think Bulgrin, I mean, my personal opinion is I don't think the guard actually need it.
Okay.
Like, obviously, someone is going to get in and do combat. But if you look at the Bulgrin profile, the really scary things that are going to get into combat to you, the Bulgrin aren't actually that good against right now. So, like, I'm not betting on Bulgrin in a fight against any amount of Deathwing Terminators.
Sure.
Right. I'm not betting on Bulgrin against any amount of Zerkers, because they're not, or like World Leaders, because they're not going to be any of them left after the charge. Right. There's a variety of things. I think the thing that ends up being the most deterrent to close combat for them is for guard is Vengeful Salute most of the time, and Kazrakin's jumping out and saying, "Get out of my house." Right. So, but I think you can bring them, and I think they're fine. I think you can probably leave them at home and be okay.
Okay.
I'm not a guard specialist.
No guard. No, but you have far more reps than the only other person talking right now. And so I value your opinion, and I'm deciding, so does the internet. We got 2 more hail lists coming up. And all of the hail lists here largely follow the same model, because there are some obviously efficient things with Shuriken and Craft Rules book. So we have Alessandro Lisum, usual Warlocks, Flappy Karandris again, 2 Farseers, 5 Rangers. Actually, this was the place where they just copied and pasted each other's army. So I assume Matthias and Alessandro work together, or we just have amazing parallel evolution where point for point they had the same army. And then in 5th place, I believe it's a soft J, Yannick Rotgen, also with Hail. Slight changes. Azurman rather than Karandris. He had a Spirit Seer rather than the 2nd Farseer. He had some Warp Spiders, which honestly do surprise me in Hail, because they are not Shuriken, and it's not like you need shooting or tricky bits, but Yannick did well. 2 units of 3 Catapult Bikes, 2 solo Warwalkers, and Yannick brought 3 Wave Serpents, which is a difference. That this is a choice of low footprint, and mortars are not going to end my day.
Right.
So that is the Schuenkloppen Open. Moving on to the other side of the world, we have the Dice Arcade GT in Gamea, Australia. This was 79 players, 5 rounds. This one, I'm not sure anyone would have expected this.
No, I'm so excited about what you're about to say.
Okay. Yes, and you are a man who can have thoughts here, so I'm truly curious about your thoughts on this list when I finish. But Alexander Engelzos, sorry, Alexander, I struggle with your last name. He brought Admech. He had 500 battle points over 5 games. Did not drop a single point in 5 games with the following: a Mars list that has a Marshal and a Dominus, 5 Rangers and 5 Infiltrators, 2 units of 10 Ruststalkers, 2 units of 4 Las Chickens, 2 units of 3 Dragoons with Tasers, 2 units of 3 Doggies, 1 Dune Crawler, and 2 Scorpius Dune Riders. I believe he titled his army list like Oops All Chickens, something along those lines. I've played against the Dragoons, and they are better than the joke you think they are, because you never see them. But the floor is yours, Noah. You are so excited.
So I'll be honest, I haven't looked at the Dragoons in a long time, because when I was playing Admech, and as I look across the hallway to my 14,000 points of display painted Admech, because I loved, that was my COVID army. I was painting during COVID, where I was killing all my time. I love Admech, and I love the aesthetic, but Dragoons just weren't in the super meta at the time. They got some with the nerf rollbacks, and now with AOC going away and a bunch of other things, I think they're actually in a really good spot. I mean, these clearly, it's actually they're just here because they're natively -1 to be hit, and they have the exploding 6s with the taser goad, and they're fast. They're on a decently survivable profile in Mars. They get canicles. and doctrine. So there can be +1 armor save and in cover and -1 to be hit on the other side of the board.
Yeah.
So they're probably making it to where they want. This list is super cool. The only thing I say about this list is I feel like it's so few pieces.
Sure.
That if even one critical piece goes out at a time you're not planning. So let's say you lost 3 of the Dragoons or 10 of the Ruststalkers out of nowhere. I think that can really mess up your planning for the game. I think
That's
the
fair.
thing is between like putting the Ruststalkers and the Dune Riders and then how fast the chickens move, you can hide the whole army and then get to where you need to go, hide again, stage, and then do what you need to do. I think the army is super cool. I think it's probably pretty hard to play, but I think it's super cool.
Yes, this is up there in one of the big brain armies because the command phase of any AdMech army that you're doing well. I have this buff and this buff and this buff and this buff.
Well, this one's not like that though.
Oh, is it not that?
No, because the Dominus is going to hand out 1 buff and give rerolls. That's okay. He's a captain, but he can be upgraded with a priest upgrade. So he'll have one of those point and clicks. He may have a warlord trait too that does it. And then the marshal will have maybe 1 point and click. And then other than that, upgrade usually with the relic for reroll 1s to wound, right? So it's not a lot of I'm throwing this here, throwing this here, throwing this here. It's actually more, this is like AdMech data sheet the army.
Okay.
With a couple key pieces. And a lot of these times, these pieces are actually going to be probably riding around because Dune Riders hold 12. And Ruststalkers only take up 1 spot because they fold up in a nice compact box with their chicken legs. So you can put both characters and all 20 Ruststalkers in vehicles. So I think you're not bookkeeping that most of the other lists would have had.
Thank you for that clarification. Those are great notes, and that helps explain how this army works. So it would take up a very small footprint, relative to.
I mean, chickens are a big base. That's a thing. They're kind of hard to hide, but the overall, you take 22 models off the table, and then if you reserve anything, and then the Dune Crawler though is huge.
That's the guy with well, anyway, Alexander, you won most of our hearts with this list and this performance. No one can ignore 500-point games. There's something there. AdMech, feel free to look in this direction. I love seeing the chickens in all their various forms. Seeing them, playing against them, especially their old version, that was not the most enjoyable, but the game is hugely different. Moving on, something we talked about already. Damian Ridgewell brought Dark Angels. This was a different one. He cut back on the total amount of Terminators, so your usual collection of characters and infiltrators. Only 19 Deathwing Terminators in a unit of 10 and 9, because Damian wanted to bring 9 multi-melta attack bikes and a Vengeance. I honestly, if I were to have put money down, I would say this sort of more combined arms list would be the better way to go just because it gives you more tools. But sometimes if you just have a big enough hammer, I guess the entire world becomes a nail. I don't know. What's your take on the, splitting the difference, going both ways, or just termies?
I think the thing with any SKU list, like the 30 Marines, there's going to be Predator armies, and there's going to be people who start building in saying, oh, I have to have a solution, and here's my solution. And you're going to see that SKU. I think when you have a more well-rounded army like that one, I don't know if 19 is the right Terminator number, but I think that list will become a slightly better option because it won't be highly dependent on this one specific trick. It might be that trick is just so good that I'm totally wrong and that works out forever. But I would have also guessed, or at least I think as the meta progresses, the combined arms lists will do very well.
I completely agree with all of those points. And the beautiful thing is we're going to have the opportunity for people to prove it out in the world. Brad Milner took third with Orcs. This one is a little different than most of the Orcs that we're going to talk about very quickly, because I'm apparently bad at monitoring the time, are going to be Goths. This one was Death Skulls. There's some of it that's the usual part, which is the Beast Boss on Squigosaur, Beast Boys, Gretchen, Commandos. But this one had Gaz. Interestingly, Gaz showing up in the only non-Goth list. He had 2 scrap jets, 2 kill rigs, a Waz bomb, a kill tank, and 3 piggies. Sort of a combined arms Orcs list. So,
Yeah, I feel like right now orcs are in a very good diverse place, so you'll see lots of builds. This is not. I played against Seth Oster's Death Skulls, looked very different than this. I played against another guy's Goffs who looked incredibly different than both of those lists. I think right now orcs have a lot of. You're going to see a lot of different looking orcs lists, and they'll all play differently, which is also really cool. So I think orcs are going to be doing some really interesting things. I don't. This feels like 2 seasons ago, kind
It
of.
does.
So I don't know if it's the right one, and obviously he dropped the game, whatever. But I think that you can do almost anything you want right now with orcs, and probably have a good chance of at least performing well.
Yeah. Well, and it will be orky. Things will die.
Yeah.
All right. Igor Kalinin with Necrons. Don't see that a ton, but still around. Nihilak, 1 Catacomb Command Barge, a Technomancer, 11 Reaper Warriors, a Hexmark, 4 3 and 3 Scorpics, 2 units of Scarabs, 2 units of Wraiths, 2 units of Tomb Blades, 2 Doomsday Arcs, 6 Destroyers, and he did bring a Monolith. I don't know. Monoliths seem to be the key to doing well with Necrons. That's my expert opinion. And please, tongue in cheek for all aggregators. Fifth place, Brody Middleton with Guard. Again, Guard is sort of collapsing down. Ponyboy, usual command squad, tank commander. He had Death Corps Marshal, 20 Cadians, 30 Kazarkins, 3 engineer squads. Engineer squads are a thing that I have no idea. Do you know what an engineer squad does? I don't.
If it is the Forge World ones from okay, so engineers had I don't know anymore. They used to have these guns that had better wounding, as well as they had like a demo charge.
Oh, okay, sure.
I had a friend who used to play them and just wipe things out with them, several editions ago.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what they do now, but they're probably killy and efficient, I would guess, with the guard. But I don't know why you'd take them over Kazarkins. I would like to know that.
Well, he had 30 Kazarkins already.
Oh, so these are the next.
Yeah, this is the rest of the elites.
Yeah, right, cool.
No, Brody realized that 30 Kazarkins is a good starting point. But finishing out what he brought, he also had Sly Marbo, which is just a fun bit of spice. Bringing Sylvester Stallone is always fun. 3 Armored Sentinels, 2 Scout Sentinels, 2 units of 3 Mortars, 3 Lehman Russes, and a Chimera. The Engineers and Sly are the only piece that you don't see across everything, although Engineers show up going on. All right. A little bit more lightning round as we get through quite a few more events, and but just might not get to everything that I had prepared, but that's fine. The Milwaukee GT in New Berlin, Wisconsin, 66 players over 5 rounds, won by Charlie Andre with 40 Dark Angels Terminators, 30 and 10 respectively, the usual HQs and 2 command squads. Talk this to death. Here's just another proof point that it's good. So Charlie, I'm sure you did a wonderful job with it. Apologies, we've just sort of covered your army a lot today. Second place, Ben Sherwin with Black Templars. This is a man who, pay attention to what he does with Black Templars, because he's been Black Templaring about as hard as anyone's Black Templared over the past 5 or so years. Grimaldus Helbrick, Chaplain on Bike, 4 units of Assault Intercessors, 5 Infiltrators, an Apothecary, 8 Thunderhammer Stormshield Terminators, 2 Lancers, 1 Reaper, 4 Impulsors. Primaris tanks, moving forward, all of which have a 5-up invuln, gives you a lot more trickery on top of just some raw power in here. Ben Sherwin staking his flag on the more parking lot build being the right place to start with Black Templars.
Impulsors with multi-meltas are sweet.
Yeah. Free multi-meltas on all of those things. Black Templars, I think, are secretly the best mech. I don't know how secret it is. I think Black Templars are the best mech Marines because they all have invulns and they all have multi-meltas for free.
I know Iron Hands are pretty good.
Yeah, but the Iron Hand builds are a little bit more combined arms. Like they bring fewer actual hulls than the Black Templar. All I'm saying is if you're describing what a Black Templar army is supposed to be, you're not saying Primaris tanks, but maybe you should be.
Sure.
JP Marquardt with Grey Knights, Prescient Brotherhood, Librarian Tech Marine Grandmaster, 15 strikes with swords and halberds mixed, 20 interceptors, again, swords and halberds, 3 more baby carriers, and 2 Helverins. You've seen lists like this for a long time, going back to when Grey Knights were oppressive. Still a lot of good tools. We'll punch hard, we'll move fast, tricksy. Good list by JP. Eric Forsman, 4th place with Orcs, a little bit more in line with what we will see with the rest of this, depending on how much of the rest of this we get to. 2 bosses, 1 in Mega Armor, 1 on Bike, 20 Beast Snagas, 30 Gretchen, 15 Commandos here, that sometimes goes up to 20, a unit of 8 and 7 Knobs, 30 Storm Boys, a Battle Wagon, and 2 Kill Rigs. So, Goths, they want to charge you, and it would not be fun to be hit in the face with this army. Fairly. Is there something secret spice that I'm missing there, or this is
no?
Goths go wah?
There's no spice. It's punch.
Okay, Goths go wah. 5th place, Matthew Mansour with Dark Angels. He skewed more in the combined arms, only 15 Terminators. He brought 9 Tornadoes and 3 Vengeances. I'm interested in the Tornadoes versus attack bikes. I would think the fact that you can bring an attack bike back might make up for the speed of a Tornado, but Matthew chose just the speeder list. That's what Matthew did. Moving on to the Scorched Earth Open in Gilbert, Arizona, 60 players over 6 rounds. This one, Noah, a faction near and dear to your heart. Jason McKenzie went with Tau.
With Borkon Tau at that, which I love.
Let me read it, and then I want a minute from you on why Borkan Tower, a thing we should think about. Cold Star, Ethereal, 30, 1 unit of 10 Breachers, 2 units of Kroots, 1 Big Suit Squad, Firesight Marksman, 15 Crude Hounds, 2 Tetras, 5 Vespids, 3 Broadsides, a Hammerhead, and a Skyray. Tell me why I should think about Borkan Tau.
So Borkan Tau they reduce your strength against their vehicle and battlesuit units by 1 if you are at 7 or less strength. Okay. So against all their T7 stuff, you're going down to with your strength 7, you're actually winning on 5s. So a lot of time you end up with way less efficiency. They also have access to a Mastercraft reroll, and that Cold Star gets access to a really good Warlord trait, which I can't remember exactly off the top of my head, but I think it increases the AP of some of his weapons. Okay. And so there's a lot of good tricks here. There's also a strat that ignores invuls with a single weapon, which means you get like one of those broadsides. Railguns will also ignore an invul, something like, or one of the suit squad's guns, but it's only on 1 gun. But I think Borkon's a good thing to be at. Fair enough. And you were saying earlier a bit of a gunline meta. Well, Tau are a gunline. All right. Tarek Hale. This is the first time we're going to talk about World Eaters. We're not going to get to talk about the rest of the list, but this is the most fun one anyway, because it has Angron in it. And Angron is fun. Angron might not be optimal because it takes away the Warlord trait from that Lord Invocatus that's in there, but, big angry boy. Lord Invocatus, Demon Prince, Master of Execution, 27 Jackals in 3 units, 5 Berserkers, 2 units of 5 8-bound, the 9 Exalted 8-bound that are in every army, and then 3 solo spawn. Just, again, similar to what we said with the Orcs, just these Orcs are red. And they worship Khorne, not Mork or Gork, which is the same. Got to go fast here. Chase Chapel, Chase brought Ynnari, Farseer Shadowseer in Karn, some Kabalites to go with his Rangers, Dire Vengers, Banshees. He brought Shadow Specters. Actually saw some Shadow Specters out there in the world. Who's to say? 3 Reavers, Spears, and Shroud Runners, 6 D Cannons, and then a Dark Patrol of Clowns with a Troop Master, Troops, and a Death Jester. Ynnari are the more melee thing that you can do with elves, and people are still succeeding. I love that. Please continue. Justin Aguilar brought Orcs, Goth list like we talked about earlier, 2 bosses and Zagstruck, 20 boys, 30 Gretchen, 20 commandos, 21 knobs, 30 storm boys, 3 battle wagons, and Ali Huang, Chaos Knights, 13 doggos. Running through just really high level, the rest of this, a lot more hail, a lot more dark angels, and quite a few more world eaters. So it looks like the places that allowed world eaters, they did show up and brought their 4 data sheets and did well. So,
it is a gunline meta, but the people who want to punch you in the face really want to punch you in the face.
Absolutely.
So it feels like the meta is pulled in both poles, both super shooty, super punchy, and figuring out somewhere in the middle is hard. But we are out of time. Noah, thank you so much. This was
Thank
delightful.
you.
Didn't hit as many lists, but I think we gave deeper analysis than normal, and that has its value too. We will be I have a free FedEx alert. Lovely. We will be back next week when we expect Colin to come back. Although, no, I'm going to tell you, you might be our number one stand-in because truly this was a pleasure.
Oh, that's so nice. Well, I'll come back and hang out with you at very early in the morning any day you ask me to.
Please plug your things because I know you specifically have things that people who listen to this would love to hear plugged.
Sure. So we run a game store in Bellingham, Washington called Aegis Games. AegisLGS.com is our website where we run events. We go to events with competitive teams. We've got a competitive Warhammer team. We also have competitive Malifaux and Commander teams. We're all about community and hobby, and we're around. So if you see us at a show, come say hi. And if you get a chance and you're up in the Northwest Washington, come check out the shop.
Indeed. And again, thank you so much. We will see you all next week.
Bye.